ministries. They must report to you every week, and you meet with them maybe once or twice a month. But the important thing is you must give them a time frame. We're talking about so many things. We cannot talk about it all here. When you put that team together of good people, and there are very many in Ogun State, and you can even get from outside Ogun State, who can help? Because the time is of the essence. Right now, many more people are losing faith in the ability of the agricultural industry. You have the land. The quality of your land has been sung here, and every word that has been said has been true. There are other things too. The private sector here in Ogun State must be made to feel as a real partner of government, a respected partner of government. Let them prepare a register. Sit down with them, or your commissioners sit down with them, and they must have a seamless relationship. The partnership will not be master and servant, it will be equal partners, believing that if the private sector does not thrive, the public sector cannot thrive. You must adopt that system. The next stage is that for the youths, don't beg the youths, make it attractive for them. The moment you start begging, they now start asking they want incentives. For you to be progressive in life, you don't need incentives, you just need an environment that is conducive. So many things can be done and done very quickly. So we should spend less time talking about all these details and highfalutin things. Once you put that team together, sir, Ogun State will start being the giant and the food basket of Lagos. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I recall that Mr. Ijewere is an accountant. So that probably explains his very practical and implementable approach. And his governor, His Excellency, I'm sure has heard his suggestions. There's somebody here who has a unique perspective and a useful perspective. The Dawn perspective. Of course, agriculture, and I've had opportunity to collaborate with him in this. Agriculture is clearly something in which you probably benefit from a regional strategy, because there are strengths there and weaknesses there, and there are markets that you can all tap into. So, Dipo, how does the Dawn agenda and its agricultural sector focus fit into all of this? And what should we be doing to align with what Dawn seeks to achieve?
Well, thank you, Okwe. We, as a region, are worried on a number of issues. One of those issues is, of course, the issue of food security, which is critical to whatever we're trying to do or whatever we're trying to achieve as a region. And we think one of the ways we could quickly catalyze quite a number of the opportunities and possibilities that the region presents, especially in leveraging the scale of the region, is by working together on a number of fronts. And I think the Dawn agenda has tried to continue to reinforce that fact that there are possibilities and there are big opportunities in leveraging the scale that is available in the region. And therefore, we begin to look at quite a number of areas where each of the states has strength and competitive advantage or competitive advantages that could be scaled across the region. Especially if you look at what is Lagos doing, for instance, in some of the areas where it's strong, what is Ogun doing in some of the areas where it's strong, and how can some of those things be replicated across the region. So we try to facilitate that kind of interactions amongst them, and it would interest you to note that even sometimes when we sit down at such informal interactions, they begin to share ideas about, things that are going on in their region, in their states. And the next time you meet, you find them saying, oh, we also have that happening. As a commission, we've also tried to see how we could build institutions around some of the things that are going on. For instance, if, Ogun State has an academy that trains farmers, there is no reason why the rest of the region should not use that academy. There's no reason why all of them cannot, find a mechanism for supporting that academy and making sure that that academy serves the region. So clearly for us, we also continue to push the ideas that this is a market. It's a market of more than 45 million people beyond Lagos. And I've heard the Ogun governor say that he wants to feed the region. Indeed, and I can say that he has made quite a number of strides in ensuring that that aspiration is realized. Every time we come to him, especially on issues of agric, he's the first to support. For instance, in starting off, we thought it was important for us to even look at the state of agric in the region. Let's do a monitoring and evaluation of agric practices and agric productivity in the region to see where we are before we then begin to say this is where we're going. And I think along those lines, we've gotten quite a lot of support from him. Again, for us, we continue to talk about the issue of youth in agriculture, which is also something that is common, because for us, what we try to do is to look at issues and areas that are common to them, especially challenges that are common to them, and see how we can build regional actions to resolve those issues and resolve those challenges. Youth in agriculture is a critical part of the work that we are doing. And we think it is important for us to begin to signpost some of the success stories that we find. It is not that we don't find some young people engaged in agriculture, but we must bring them out. We must let some of their contemporaries, their colleagues, know that there's a lot that is happening even within the youth segment that they can copy. So those are some of the areas that we are working on. But the important thing is for us to continue to see that they share best practices, they share best cases, and they continue that interaction. For instance, also, we thought it was important for us to look at what kind of support could we get from the federal government. There are quite a lot of incentives, a lot of support programs from the federal government that we think we need to also access as a block, as a regional block. That was what led us to the meeting that we had with the Minister for Agric just about a week ago, where quite a lot of interesting things came up, in terms of what the region should be doing together, especially not just amongst themselves, but in partnership with the federal government.
Thank you very much, Dipo. Sharing best practices, leveraging economies of scale, achieving synergy. I think that will summarize the contribution that Dawn can bring to agriculture, not just in Ogun State, but in southwestern Nigeria. There's one of us on the panel whose role maybe she would have been listening to us and been eager to chip in as everybody said something. Ronke is essentially the policy person in Ogun State, responsible for agriculture, and we know the state has done a lot. So I would challenge Ronke to tell us in specific terms what are the opportunities that you see. What exactly are you selling? You have 3 minutes to make a sales speech to investors gathered from all over the world, and to tell us why, what, and what it's all about in agriculture in Ogun State.
Thank you, Okwemi. First, I think you're biased. You didn't give the others a 3-minute timeline, but I'll do my bit to do just that, having learned from the very best. My boss and also the Minister for Agriculture, whom we all fondly refer to as Apostle Additional, because he goes out there and he preaches the message. For us in Ogun State, it's about a revamp of that economy. And it's not just about talking the talk, but walking that talk. Walking that talk from the perspective of a policy shift, and not policy on paper, but what you actually practice. We're working with the young people because we have looked at the farming population and realize that there is a dearth. And if we're not careful, we will have a gap in the next 5 to 10 years, and farmers will become totally and completely extinct. Apart from that, we have also looked at our current crop of farmers. The bulk of them are sustenance farmers. These are smallholder farmers with 5 hectares and below. So that's also a target group for us, because we realize that we can talk all the fancy mechanization. Mechanization is important from the perspective of land clearing. We're peculiar in this side of Nigeria because we have thick forests. So clearing land and preparing land takes the chunk of the work. So for us, it's important that we open up land for this crop of farmers. And in addition to that, work with them to see how we can maximize the entire value chain of that industry. That's not just enough. You also have to look at the existing laws that you have. How do they support farming? How do they support agriculture? These days, everybody wants to go into modernized abattoirs. But the truth is, if you do not have the supporting and enabling meat laws, revamped meat laws, those mechanized abattoirs in no time will become extinct, and you have no choice other than to go back to your rudimentary practice of killing cows, and getting meat to the people. So for us, it's a mixed bag. Mixed bag because you also have a lot of work to do from reaching out to where these farmers are, where they're positioned. And that's where the extension services does come in for us. We work closely with the federal government. The GES scheme is very commendable. And what it's done for us is it's enabled us to have at least we have a register, a database of sorts of our farmers now. We know who they are, we know where they are, we know the sort of services they require of us, and we're able to penetrate deep into where they reside and do their business. We work with the likes of IIT and NIHOT to get improved varieties of seeds, seedlings, and cuttings across to them. What we do as government is we have replication farms where we plant these, and the produce is solely used to replicate that successful cropping back to the farmers. So it's, like I keep saying, it's a mixed bag for us. We're open for business. We have revised and revamped our land administration rules. Land is more easily available to people. You could say, yes, the timeline, but I can assure you that it takes the time frame it does because we want to be certain that we have crossed all our T's and dotted all our I's. So that as at the time you move to location, you're convinced, and we are also convinced, that you are genuine and you know what it is exactly that you want to do. In terms of policy making, we're focused on our policies surviving our administration because we do realize that you cannot politicize agriculture. Agriculture is about sustenance. It's about food security. It's about ensuring that our people have access to livelihood, means of livelihood, and that we're able to create wealth. And that also that we create employment opportunities for the younger generation. Thank you very much.
She did make a good sales speech. Thank you very much. Please, if you have questions, we'll take a few questions. Please submit them very quickly to the ushers and let us have them as soon as you can. But before we go into that, while we're assembling the questions, I'll just go back to Mr. Yon Sakov of Unilever, and I want to put him and Ogun State government on the spot here and say, from the big business perspective, because we're talking about attracting world-class players, give me your assessment of the investment climate in Ogun State and of your experience, or your assessment of the experience working with policy in Ogun State. And what can we do better?
Since I want to go back home, I have to be careful how I answer that question, I suppose. And every time I'm introduced as the voice of big business, I think to myself, it's not too long ago that my mother thought I was a little boy. so it is good to be described as big. No, since I have been in Nigeria, which is not too long, I have tried to understand the history of our own interaction with the Ogun State government. So if you take Unilever as an entity, Around 90% of our turnover is manufactured onshore in Nigeria, and of that 90% of our turnover, 80% of the manufacturing is done in Ogun State in Agbara. So we obviously are very, very integrated into what goes on in Ogun State and have a very strong interest in seeing the prosperity of Ogun State. My own personal experience and that of my colleagues through the history that I have been able to familiarize myself with is that it's a very accessible government. I have never had a sense that if you want to interact and put ideas on the table, that they are not people to listen to. I've been able to make whatever inputs in the short time that I've been here. Sometimes late at night when I have to speak to commissioners, they are accessible. So that is always a good sign about a government that first and foremost understands the role of investors and of the private sector, and it's a very, very important start. It is also important to mention that it is a government that is working within certain constraints. When we speak about the constraints of Nigeria, the first one that comes up is the energy deficit. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I have found that the Ogun State government has been open about discussing those constraints as well, which makes it easy for us to be able to get in and to speak and to together see how you can pull a program together in order to be able to achieve that shared prosperity. Now, while I have the mic, I will just make a few quick remarks. The world in which we live, if it was my global CEO that was here, he would make that point because that's a point that he always makes an effort to stress. The world in which we live is broken in many parts because the model of business that we have used up till now, be it in agriculture or higher end industry, high technology industry, whatever, has not delivered the shared prosperity that we are looking for. Therefore, you've had accumulation in parts where 85 people in the world, the top 85 richest people, together command material resources that exceed the bottom 1.5 billion people. We live in a world in which 1 billion people go to bed every day without food to eat, and the rest of us throw 30 to 40% of our food away. And in that world, you have a mass group of people who, because of some of the things that have been discussed, connectivity, the spread of the internet, the rise of the mobile phone, the transparency that is emerging, means that the poor and marginalized can see how the rest of us are living. And they are no longer willing to take that world. A friend of mine says, if we continue like this, one day the poor will have nothing to eat but the rich. So this is not about solving problems for the private sector alone. It is about ensuring that we have interventions that give us an inclusive society, that gives us mechanisms to share prosperity so that society as a whole begins to thrive better. And so I like the point that you made about, in my mind, it's not a dichotomy between big or small. It's a choice about how we are going to ensure organic prosperity, straddling the pyramid, trying to bring more people into what we will call the modern economy in order that they have a better chance to share what their true potential is. That's what it's about. And every time, at least in the short time I have been in Nigeria, I have seen a convergence of views when I have dealt with the Ogun State government. So that will be my short assessment.
Thank you very much. I'm happy I got you and Father Nzamujo to reach some consensus. Now, where are questions, please? Let's quickly have those questions. Yes. Okay. Now, can I read that? What measures can be adopted to encourage Ogun State rice farmers and processors to become sustainable exporters? I'll allow 3 people to comment very quickly on that. Dr. Dixon, 30 seconds. Father Nzamujo and Mr. Njewere. Your mic, please.
Don't emphasize rice in general. Ogun is known for its Ufada rice that I know has a high demand in the national market and internationally. So develop the supply chain for it because there is a niche market already for it and focus on it to excel. And then once you've got that, then you can focus on the other rices because Nigeria, because of the change in food habit, has a high demand for rice in the country, in the domestic market as well.
Father?
That is very, very simple. My advice will be, don't just do rice. It should be integrated because the input is important. Right now at Songhai, we are producing 3 times a year, 5 tons per hectare, about 15 tons per year per hectare. Using this new technology, it is possible you can do it. Nigeria has all the varieties. You can do them whether upland or lowland. So it is possible for a young farmer in Ogun State, in a hectare alone in a year, if it is done, he can produce 15 tons of rice, paddy rice. That means now the government will provide something like irrigation and off-road. So it's extremely possible today to do that.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Ijewere, your quick thoughts.
Quickly, let's understand that the 2 million tons of rice we import every year, Lagos and Ogun State alone eat about 75% of it. That is a statement of fact. Now, therefore, Ogun people are rice eaters. So they love rice. I had the privilege not too long ago of carrying out a survey around Ogun State, and we found a place in Egua. Fantastic place for rice. All you need to do there, very flat land, loamy soil, is to now create a private-public sector partnership. Make the land available. There are at least, I can tell you, within the next 24 hours, 10 different international organizations that will be glad to come, provided the environment in terms of government interest in it will work. Let us move away from this whole thought of, one, let's encourage the youths. No, the youths will go where the money is. Let us also stop trying to woo the banks. No, the banks will go where the money is. Create those environments. Look, let's start respecting the agricultural industry. They are not beggars. Central Bank has embarrassed it so many times with this NISAL and so on, begging the banks to provide money. No. Money will go where the money is. Rice is the next bus stop for money. Cassava is the next bus stop for money. Maize is the next bus stop for money. How do you do it? Do not do the thing that has always been done. That means the theory. Please call people like Father here from Songhai. He's done it practically. He is a Nigerian. We drove him out of Nigeria because we refused to give him land. When he went there, he made miracles out of it. The fact that he's here today shows his interest. Just call him and say, this is our problem. How do we solve it?
Thank you very much,
Your Excellency,
sir.
You have good people that can help you.
Thank you very much, sir. Where's the next question, please? Maybe our last, or maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more. Are there any incentives in place for startup entrepreneurs in agriculture in Ogun State? Interest-free loans, rebates, land clearing services, etc. Mrs. Shokefon.
Yes, there are. First, our land costs next to nothing because you only pay 1,000 naira per hectare for the land. But naturally, where the economic crops on the land that's allocated to you, you must compensate the communities in which you are doing your farming activity. In terms of interest-free facilities, we don't have those. We only work with the likes of Central Bank, who have designed, or which have designed programs into which state governments can key and therefore disburse to those farmers. And they can only do those, again, through cooperative groups. We don't do to individual farmers. The only other support we give, again, is, like I said earlier, improved seeds, improved seedlings, improved cuttings. We grow those and distribute to the various farmer groups. We have equipment, and that's rebates. We have discounted rates on those, and that's not seasonal. It's not something that will expire next month or at the end of the year. It's year-round.
Thank you very much. So again, Ogun State is in the right direction. There's land and the incentives. Let's take a final question. It's about to come up. Yes. what technologies can be used to grow small-scale farming to a healthy mass agricultural revolution in Ogun State? Now, this is small-scale farming, and I'll ask Father Nzamujo first, and then Dr. Dixon to comment for 60 seconds on that question.
Thank you very much. The biggest obstacle in agriculture in Africa is the soil. We have developed what they call authentic technology that bring benefit both to the soil, producer, and the consumer. This is based on what you call the microorganism. Effective microorganism can give you the input very shortly. So you can, today we are producing tons of tomatoes, all of them, using this effective microorganism. We invite every person to come and see what is happening here. Authentic technologies, we call them. It is working, small scale up to 100 hectares. It can work effectively so that you can improve the productivity. It exists and it's very easy. At the same time, not only that, but also protection of the environment, of the plant itself. We don't use chemicals to protect them. We don't use it. This exists using the resources in their local area, extracting the bacteria in Ogun State. You can use them to fight all them, and it works very well. It is working today. We are very much to share with you, to share these technologies for them. It is working. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dixon.
Well, I want to agree that every day our soils is becoming more and more degraded. So one thing to change that situation, that's why our yields are always low, because of the low use of fertilizer. I think Nigeria was about 50 kilograms per hectare, has improved now to about 100. So that's one use of small farmer, and with this GES scheme, I think there will be improvement in the soil system in Nigeria. And the second is improve varieties, whether it's cassava, it's maize, it's plantain, yam, and so on. Just a combination of fertilization and improved varieties, you can have substantial increase in your productivity and hence extra income. But the key message I want to give to everybody is we should produce food in ways that create wealth. Always look at the market while you are producing food, because you don't just need food for the table in the house, but you also need money in the pockets for taking care of your welfare, your children's school fees, your house roofing, and so on.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, I think that our work may be considered done. I would like to stress some of the key points that have occurred throughout the discussion. Private sector leadership, it comes out very strongly, but in a multi-stakeholder approach in which there are avenues for all stakeholders to input into policy, to share solutions and ideas. We must use market-based approaches, sustainable strategies, involving incentives, very clearly articulated policy. Execution, that's something that Mr. Ijewere stressed. Father Nzamujo stresses some recognition that we're not just trying to solve the problem of agriculture, but we're also trying to solve the problem of a community in terms of employment, in terms of youth engagement, in terms of peace and security, and many other factors. Ogun State and the Southwest region is a robust, has the right endowments, has the right competitive advantage for agriculture, and we have the right people. And I think we have the right leadership in the state, and I believe that all of us in Ogun State have the will to make Ogun State what Mexico has become to the United States, or what New Jersey is to New York. I would like us all to thank the panel for, I think, a very, very good deliberation. And I would at this point say that the panel is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Wonderful work done there. Marvelous work. I'd like to appreciate Dr.